I stood in front of the mirror in my cramped studio apartment, adjusting the deliberately cheap sweater I'd bought from Target. The scratchy fabric felt odd on my skin, a sharp contrast to the designer pieces hanging in my real closet across. Which city are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. And hey, make sure you watch till the end. Something's going to happen that you won't see coming. But appearances mattered, especially for the role of Chloe, the struggling artist I'd been playing for the past 5 years. My name is Chloe Mitchell, and I'm the hidden CEO of Vistatech Innovations, a $13 million software company that's transforming the AI landscape. But to my family, I'm just the letdown, the failed artist who wasted her potential. My phone buzzed with a message from my sister. Don't be late to Christmas dinner. And please, wear something halfway decent this time. I smiled at the irony. Stephanie, the golden child, had no idea that her entire executive-level salary at Harper Dynamics came from my company's budget. I'd acquired Harper through a shell corporation just 3 months ago. The news wouldn't go public until next week. The drive to my parents' suburban home felt longer than usual. Maybe it was the weight of the secrets I carried, or maybe it was just the dread of another holiday dinner full of subtle jabs and passive-aggressive disappointment. As I pulled into their driveway in my carefully maintained old Honda Civic, just beat up enough to pass for broke, I saw Stephanie's new Porsche parked out front, gleaming under the Christmas lights. "Chloe, you're late again," my mom called from the doorway, her voice laced with that familiar blend of irritation and concern. "Stephanie and Eric have been here for over an hour." I stepped inside, the scent of her traditional cooking blending with pine from the tree. "Sorry, Mom," I said. "The bus was running late." "The bus?" Stephanie's voice was thick with sarcasm as she emerged from the living room designer dress, hugging her professionally sculpted figure. "Oh, Chloe, you're still using public transportation? Eric and I could help you get a decent car, you know." She motioned to her husband, who was busy texting, half listening. "I have a car," I replied softly. "It gets me where I need to go. That rust bucket, it's embarrassing." She rolled her eyes. "You know, there's an entry-level spot in our marketing department. Nothing fancy, but it's better than whatever it is you're doing." If only she knew I was the one who approved her department's budget last week. Our dad came out from his home office, barely glancing up from his iPad. "Stephanie's right, Chloe. You need to be realistic. You're 32 now. This artistic phase has gone on long enough." I suppressed a grin. My so-called phase had generated more revenue in the last quarter than Harper Dynamics had in the past 3 years. But they didn't know that. To them, I was still the daughter who dropped out of business school to chase a pipe dream in digital art. They didn't know that those creative skills led me to build one of the most advanced AI visualization systems in the industry. They didn't know my freelance gigs were actually high-level contracts with over 100 employees under my leadership. And they certainly didn't know that my little apartment was just a carefully crafted lie. Speaking of work, Stephanie smiled wide, clearly gearing up for an announcement. "Harper Dynamics is expanding our AI division. I've been promoted Executive Vice President of Operations." My mom clapped like it was a Broadway encore. Even Dad put down his iPad. "That's wonderful news, honey. You see, Chloe, that's what happens when you apply yourself." I nodded and offered my congratulations while mentally reviewing the reorg plan I'd approved last week. Stephanie's promotion would last exactly 17 more days until the merger announcement. After that, she'd find out what AI development really looked like. "And that's not all," she added, practically glowing. "Eric and I are looking at houses in Oakwood Heights. You know, where all the real CEOs live." I knew. I'd bought a house there recently myself, under my company's name, of course. "That's great," I said, managing a small smile. "I'm happy for you." "Oh, don't look so down," she said, patting my hand with just a bit too much pity. "Your art might work out someday. Not everyone's cut out for the business world. Some people have to make things look pretty, right?" Dad sighed dramatically. "I still don't understand why you left business school, Chloe. You had so much potential. Now look at your sister, executive VP, and you're still living in a showbox doing side jobs." "Actually," I said, a flicker of defiance in my voice, "I've been working on some exciting projects." "I'm developing a new AI visualization platform, please," Stephanie cut in, rolling her eyes. "Let the real tech people handle that. Making websites for coffee shops isn't exactly cutting-edge AI, you know." If only she knew the platform her team was eagerly preparing to implement was mine, sold to Harper through one of my smaller ventures, knowing they'd jump at the chance to outpace their competition. Dinner played out as usual, Stephanie dominating the conversation with office drama and boardroom wins, Eric grunting his occasional agreement, my parents glowing with pride while giving me side eyes of concern. I pushed food around my plate, already thinking about the upcoming merger that would flip this entire narrative. A part of me wanted to come clean right then, to stand up and tell them that the failure they'd pitied was actually one of the most powerful tech entrepreneurs in the city. But I didn't. I hadn't for 5 years. Because the truth was, their judgment gave me something valuable: freedom. Freedom to build something in peace. Freedom to grow without their interference. Freedom to prove myself to myself. After dinner, as Stephanie showed off photos of her new Porsche, my phone buzzed. A message from my real office. Merger documents. Ready for final review. In 1 week, Harper Dynamics would be absorbed into Vistatech. Everything would change. Must be nice, I murmured, glancing at the Porsche pics. Being so successful, Stephanie smirked, dripping with condescension. Don't worry, Chloe. Not everyone's meant to win at life. At least you're creative. I left early, claiming a freelance deadline. As I drove away in my beat-up Honda, I laughed. In exactly 7 days, they'd all see just how creative I really was. What I didn't realize then was that Stephanie was about to find out much sooner than planned, because that night, she did something unexpected. She Googled the mysterious CEO of her newly expanding company. Later that evening, in my real home, a spacious loft perched in one of the most exclusive high-rises in the city, I sat reviewing the final merger documents. Everything was in order. Harper Dynamics would soon be a division of Vistatech. Most of the current executives would be replaced, including, of course, the newly promoted executive VP of operations. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was from Stephanie. Hey sis, quick question. Why does the CEO of Vistatech Innovations have the same unusual middle name as you? Huang Mitchell isn't exactly common. I stared at the message for a moment, a slow smile forming. Interesting question, I replied. Why don't you come by my apartment tomorrow? My real apartment. I'll text you the address. The game was going to end sooner than I planned, and honestly, I couldn't wait. The next morning, I stood in my penthouse, watching the city stir through massive floor-to-ceiling windows. My phone lit up with 3 missed calls and a barrage of increasingly frantic texts from Stephanie. Chloe, what is this? Is this real? Are you serious right now? I knew she'd spent the night digging. Stephanie had always been thorough. She'd made a solid executive, even if innovation wasn't her strong suit. By now, she would have uncovered the trail I'd carefully left just visible enough for her to find. Conference keynotes under my full name, industry awards, press releases about Vistatech's AI breakthroughs. All the pieces were there. The doorman called up. Ma'am, your sister is here. She's insistent. Send her up, James. And maybe have security on standby. Moments later, my private elevator dinged open. Stephanie stood there in yesterday's clothes, hair disheveled, makeup faded. Her carefully curated perfection showed its first cracks. What the hell, Chloe? She blurted as she stormed into the penthouse, eyes wide, scanning the luxurious space. What is this place? What's going on? Coffee? I asked, gesturing to the professional-grade espresso machine. You look like you could use some. You want to offer me coffee? She snapped. I just spent the whole night figuring out that my struggling artist of a sister is actually my boss. I took a calm sip from my own mug, double-shot espresso in a ceramic cup from a tiny Italian artisan. Technically, I said, I'm your boss's boss's boss. But sure, that's the gist. Stephanie dropped onto my leather sectional, her legs giving out beneath her. This isn't possible. You live in that tiny apartment. You take the bus. You build little websites for yoga studios. No, I said gently. I let you believe that's my life. It was easier than dealing with the constant judgment, the lectures, the pity. Playing that part gave me room to build this. You've been lying to us. To me. For years, she said, voice rising. And now what? You own Harper Dynamics? I own several companies, I corrected. Harper just happens to be the latest acquisition. I walked into my office, grabbed a tablet, and handed it to her. Here's something I think you'll want to see: the reorganization plans, post-merger. She snatched it, scrolling quickly. Her face went pale. You're cutting my position. You're eliminating me. I'm removing an unnecessary layer of management that's slowing down innovation, I said calmly. That you held the position is unfortunate, but irrelevant. Irrelevant. She stood, her shock giving way to fury. I'm your sister, Chloe. Now I am, I said, meeting her gaze. But tell me, when did being sisters ever matter to you? Was it when you ridiculed my choices at every holiday dinner? When you looked down on my career like it was a hobby? That was different. We were trying to help you, to motivate you to do something with your life. I walked to the wall where a collection of frame patents hung, dozens of them. Something like this? I asked. Like developing an AI system that's changing everything from healthcare diagnostics to climate modeling? Like founding a tech company worth over $13 million? Stephanie stared at the patents, speechless. But how? She finally whispered. When? Remember when I left business school to study digital art? I asked. Everyone thought I was throwing away my future, but I saw something you didn't: how creativity and technology could intersect. While you were climbing ladders, I was building something new, and you never told me. Would you have listened? I asked softly. Or would you have tried to control it, shape it into your vision of success? Stephanie dropped back onto the couch, deflated. Do Mom and Dad know? No, I said. And they won't until the merger is public. Unless what? Unless you tell them. I crossed the room and sat down across from her. You have a choice to make, Steph, right now. She stiffened. What kind of choice? I'm offering you a different position in the new company. You're not qualified for your current title, no offense, but there's a role in client relations. A position that fits your strengths. Similar salary, less authority. You want me to take a demotion, she said flatly. From my sister? No, I replied. From the CEO of the company that now owns Harper Dynamics. The fact that I'm your sister? Irrelevant. She stood again, walked over to the window, stared out at the skyline. I could practically hear the gears turning in her head. Pride vs. opportunity, ego vs. survival. And if I say no, then you'll get a generous severance package. And you can explain to Mom and Dad why you lost your job after the acquisition. Your call. She turned, and for the first time in years, I saw something in her eyes that hadn't been there before: respect. And maybe a little fear. You've been planning this all along, haven't you? She said quietly. All those family dinners. All those judgmental comments we threw at you. You sat there and took it, knowing you were more successful than any of us. I gave a small shrug. Being underestimated is a kind of superpower. Nobody watches the failure too closely. Nobody asks what she's really working on. They just ignore her and give her the freedom to build. Stephanie sat down again, this time more composed. And Mom and Dad? What happens when they find out? They'll find out with the rest of the world, I said. And their reaction? That's no longer my concern. They'll be crushed you didn't tell them. I raised an eyebrow. Will they? Or will they just be upset they can't claim credit for my success? Stephanie winced. I want to see the real job description, she said at last. Not some sanitized version. I pulled up the file on my tablet and sent it to her phone. Take the day to think it over. I need your answer by tonight. The merger announcement can't wait. She stood, gathering her things, holding on to what little dignity she could. At the elevator, she paused. For what it's worth, she said quietly, I'm sorry for how I treated you. I know, I said, but this isn't about apologies anymore. It's about what comes next. After she left, I returned to the window, coffee in hand, and watched the city move beneath me. In 7 days, everything would change. Whether my family was ready or not, I picked up my private phone and sent Stephanie one more message. By the way, that house you're eyeing in Oakwood Heights? I own it, but there's a better one 3 doors down. Much better security system. Her response came fast. Show me the listing. And I've made my decision about the job. I smiled. Maybe, just maybe, there was still hope for us after all. The week leading up to the merger felt like moving through a dream. Stephanie had accepted the new role. She didn't go down quietly. She negotiated hard for added responsibilities, but I respected her for that. She was adapting fast. Within days, she was asking smart questions about our AI systems and taking real interest in what we were building. For the first time, she was looking beyond titles and corporate games toward the actual innovation. But the real test was still ahead, telling our parents. They're going to be at the merger announcement, Stephanie warned one morning over coffee in my penthouse. She looked different, now less polished, more grounded. Gone were the runway dresses and flashy accessories. In their place was a sharp business suit, practical and professional. Dad's on Harper's board, remember? He has to be there. I nodded as I checked my reflection in the glass. I wore my CEO armor today, a charcoal Armani suit tailored within a thread of perfection. It cost more than a year of rent in my fake apartment. I know. That's why I arranged for private security, I said calmly. You really think they'll make a scene? I said, choosing my words carefully. They'll do what they've always done, try to take control. Try to rewrite history. Stephanie winced. You're probably right. Honestly, I would have done the same thing a week ago. I studied her face for a moment, really studied it. This week had changed her. Finding out the truth had cracked her worldview, forced her to reevaluate what she believed about success, about family, about me. You really had no idea? I asked. All those years? She shook her head slowly. You played the role perfectly. The struggling artist, the burden. I was so smug, so condescending. And you just sat there. Were you laughing? Inside? Not laughing, I said. Building. Every judgment, every patronizing offer to help, it only confirmed I made the right decision to keep things quiet. My phone buzzed with a calendar alert. Merger press conference 2 hours. Time to put the final pieces in motion. At Harper Dynamics headquarters. The tension was thick. Clusters of employees whispered nervously about the rumors. The mysterious CEO of Vistatech. The impending merger. No one knew what to expect. I waited in a private side room, watching the conference hall through a one-way mirror. The room was filling quickly. Executives, press, board members. And there in the front row, my parents. Dad sat stiffly, scrolling on his phone, his board member nameplate gleaming in front of him. Mom looked around, probably wondering why Stephanie had been so insistent they attend. Ready? Stephanie appeared at my side, holding a tablet. Almost, I said. I turned to my assistant. Is everything in place? She nodded. Security is briefed. Private exit is ready if you need it. And she smirked slightly. We have full footage, every angle, in case you want to preserve their reactions for later. At precisely a.m., Harper's current CEO walked on stage. He looked uncomfortable, sweat gathering at his collar. He began the usual scripted speech about growth and exciting new chapters. Dad frowned. He'd known the man for over 2 decades. He could tell something was off. Then came the moment. Ladies and gentlemen, the CEO said, clearing his throat. It is my great pleasure to introduce the CEO of Vistatech Innovations, the visionary leader who will be guiding Harper Dynamics into its next phase. I stepped onto the stage from the side door. For a brief second, the room was silent. Then came the sound I'd been waiting for, my mother's audible gasp, my father's sharp inhale. Good morning, I said into the mic, steady and composed. I'm Chloe Mitchell, founder and CEO of Vistatech Innovations. Gasps, murmurs, cameras flashing. My parents stared, stunned. Dad's face went rigid with disbelief. Mom covered her mouth with trembling fingers. Over the next 10 minutes, I laid out the merger plan, strategy, vision, innovation, and the path forward, all while watching them from the corner of my eye. Dad looked like the floor had disappeared beneath him. Mom kept glancing between me and Stephanie, trying to piece together when the daughters she thought she knew had changed so completely. After I finished and the reporters swarmed with questions, I saw my parents pushing through the crowd toward the stage. Security stepped in, but I lifted a hand. Let them come. Chloe, Dad's voice rang out across the crowd. What is the meaning of this? I turned, professional and composed. The meaning is exactly what I just announced, Dad. Vistatech has acquired Harper Dynamics. The deal is done. But you're an artist. Mom stammered. You make websites. No, Mom. That's who you thought I was. Who you needed me to be because you couldn't see success in any form besides your own. Dad's expression shifted from shock to anger. How dare you go behind our backs, making secret deals, buying out the company from under us. This isn't how family behaves, family. I laughed softly. Was it family behavior when you dismissed every decision I made? When you treated me like a joke at every holiday dinner? We were trying to help. Mom insisted. We just wanted what was best for you. What was best for me? I asked. Or best for your image of the perfect daughter? Security edged closer as the tension rose. Reporters were recording, drawn in by the drama. Mr. Mitchell, my assistant cut in smoothly. Perhaps we can continue this in private? The press is very interested in your daughter's story. That got his attention. Image. Reputation, his weakness. He straightened, adjusted his tie. Of course, he said, jaw clenched. Chloe, shall we talk as a family? I glanced at Stephanie, who gave a subtle nod. My office. 1 hour. As security escorted them away, I heard Mom whispering, but how could we not know all this time? 1 hour later, we sat in my real office, a space filled with innovation, holographic displays, data feeds from VistaTech's global operations, and the patents on the walls the silent witnesses to everything I'd built. Why? Dad asked finally. Why all the secrecy? Why hide it from us? Because if I'd told you, you would have tried to control it, to shape it into your vision. I needed the freedom to build something real, something mine. By deceiving us? Mom asked, her voice barely above a whisper, pretending to struggle while you were building this? Yes, I said, unapologetic, because every time I tried to share my work, you brushed it off, called it doodling, playing on the computer. We didn't understand, Dad admitted quietly. You thought success only looked like a corner office and a title, Stephanie interrupted. Like me. But Chloe's way, it's not just success. It's revolutionary. They both turned to her in shock. You knew? Mom asked. Just for a week, she said. But it changed everything I thought I knew about Chloe, about success. I could see them trying to adjust, trying to reshape their memory to fit this new reality, trying to claim it. Don't, I said sharply. Don't pretend you supported me all along. Don't rewrite history. This success is mine. I built it in spite of you, not because of you. But we're your parents, Mom said desperately. Surely now, we can be part of this. Part of what? I asked. Part of the success? Now that it's visible? Now that you're not embarrassed? I stood and walked to the window. That's not how this works. Then how does it work? Dad asked, smaller than I'd ever seen him. It works like this, I said, turning to face them. I run my company my way. No interference, no claiming credit. Stephanie, she corrected automatically. Stephanie, I said with a small smile, has accepted these terms. She now works for me, not because she's my sister, but because she earned a place here. They both looked at her. She nodded. She's not just my sister, Stephanie said. She's the most visionary leader I've ever met, and I'm lucky to be learning from her. The silence that followed was heavy. Maybe they were finally realizing how deeply they'd misjudged their daughters. So what now? Mom asked softly. Now, I said. Now you have a choice. You can accept that your version of success was too narrow, that I created something remarkable without your help. Or, you can keep trying to twist this into something you understand. Dad looked down. And if we choose option 1, then maybe, I said, we can slowly start rebuilding. Not the way you knew me, but the way I am now. They exchanged looks, decades of certainty unraveling before their eyes. We'll need time, Dad finally said. Take all the time you need, I replied. I've waited 5 years. I can wait longer. After they left, Stephanie lingered by the window, coffee in hand. Well, she said, exhaling, that was intense. It was necessary, I replied. They needed to hear it, to understand that success doesn't always wear a suit or follow a traditional path. You think they'll ever really get it? I looked out at the city, the skyline I now had a stake in. In some ways, probably not. But that's no longer my problem. I'm done hiding who I am to make anyone else feel comfortable. The next morning, I went back to my fake studio apartment for the last time. I packed up the few belongings I kept there, the broken lamp, the mismatched dishes, the paint-streaked sketchbook that sat unopened for years. It had all been part of the illusion. As I turned to leave, my eyes landed on that sketchbook. I picked it up and flipped through the pages, early AI concepts I'd drawn when no one believed I had a future. Designs that had once been dismissed as doodles were now patent blueprints worth millions. I tucked it under my arm, not as a reminder of their doubt, but as proof that my vision had always been there, even if no one else saw it. Sometimes, success doesn't look the way people expect. Sometimes, it looks like a dropout with a paintbrush. Sometimes, it looks like a failed artist living in a tiny apartment. Sometimes, it looks like a daughter who disappoints her family by forging her own path. And sometimes, it looks like the quiet one they underestimated finally stepping into the light. I walked out of that apartment for the last time, leaving behind the version of myself I'd carefully played for 5 years. It was time to be fully, unapologetically me. The artist who reimagined artificial intelligence, the rebel who built an empire, the disappointment who turned out to be a powerhouse. After all, the best revenge isn't proving them wrong, it's proving yourself right.